Welcome to the Kootenai Health Podcast. I'm Katie Bobbitt. The weather is getting warmer, finally and thankfully, and as we look to those warmer months, we think of all the fun things that we're going to be doing, whether it's camping, going on the lake, hiking, you name it. But to our injury prevention team, they start thinking of all the traumas that will start coming into our emergency department. So today our focus is all about keeping you and your family safe. I hope you enjoy. I am here with Kirstin Haley. She is our Trauma Injury Prevention and Education Coordinator. So in other words, you see her out and about in the community doing all sorts of things from water safety to bike helmet safety to stop the bleed classes. Kirstin, speak a little bit to your role and what you do here and just the importance of it, really.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it. So I'm new to this role as of January, so I'm kind of looking at ways that the community needs education that they come into the emergency room for. Anything that's trauma related, from falls, car accidents, bleeding injuries, and trying to educate the community to be able to prevent as much as they can, providing them with the education that they can use so that they can help themselves as best as possible before they come in to see me so that I can finish and take care of them the rest of the way to ensure that they get to go home to their families. With that, I work with the ambulance crews as well. So we're trying to do a lot of education for them that affects the community, and then therefore when they come into the hospital, they again have this full circle of care that they'll be able to receive involved with everything.
So a toolkit for themselves to remain healthy, and just like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Our whole goal here is to get people back to their families healthy, or ideally stay with their families healthy, but we're here if they need. And you know, the biggest reason we are here today is to speak a little bit to Trauma Awareness Month. So that is May.
It is.
What are our three most common injuries?
So here in Kootenai County, we actually track a full range of injuries. We are kind of in charge of everything from down in like Kellogg, St. Mary's, all the way up to Bonners Ferry. We get a lot of transfers in, so a lot of that information is from all of those areas as well. But specifically, Kootenai County is falls, which is from any height, really. And then there's ground level falls, which is if you're walking down the street and you trip on the curb and you fall down and you come in to see me in the ER. That counts as one of the top two. And then the third one is MVCs, and those are those motor vehicle crashes. They can involve motorcycles, they can involve the scooters, anything with the motor basically is kind of encompassed in that MVC, and then we go from there to assess how often this is happening, where it's happening, if there's a trend that we're seeing, is there something that we can be fixing in a sense? So if it falls on this particular curb, do we need to go in and actually fix that curb? Is that something that we could fix? And then educating the community to be aware of those things so that they kind of have that anticipatory time knowing I need to be extra careful over here or something. But those are the three main ones. We have a lot, but those are the three main ones for Kootenai County.
And, you know, it's great to be aware of that, because I know one of the biggest things for Trauma Awareness Month is to be aware of everyday things that can impact us.
May is Trauma Awareness Month. That's established by the American Trauma Society, which is a very nationwide, not even international program that tries to coordinate all trauma centers into one essential position to be able to access education, resources, information for their programs. And this year they're actually focusing on injury prevention, and their motto is injury prevention is everybody's business. So for me, that's my whole job now. This year, focusing a lot, being new to me, focusing a lot on what I can do to help other people be aware of how to prevent an injury if they can. Every injury is preventable. It's just on how we can execute that to make sense to everybody else. There's everybody from a 2-year-old who can be injured. There's everybody to a 102-year-old. That whole range is what we see. Falls happen off of trampolines. Falls happen off of bunk beds. Falls happen when you're walking down the street. All those little pieces like that are something that the Trauma Society wants to focus on to be able to prevent as much as possible, because the risks for a lot of these injuries, it just is tenfold. It keeps going. There's one thing after another, and then those individuals continue to have to either struggle or figure out how to live with a new injury that they just can't get over. So our job that they want to really promote is to make sure that everybody can prevent an injury. It's just how best we can handle that and, educate everybody for it.
You make a great point, because so often we think, oh, we survived, but then are you really able to live post that injury? And that's what's so important with this education aspect. We do a lot of education on falls, especially with the senior community, which is great because they tend to have a lot of falls and end up in the hospital. But there are some misconceptions around falls. Like you said, trampoline, it's not always just that elderly population. Everyone needs to be aware of different ways they could get injured.
Right, exactly. And I think it's, it's like with bikes and helmets and things like that. The weather's coming up. It's going to be beautiful, hopefully longer than a weekend. But, when you're out riding your bike, if you're, 90 years old, still active, and you're not wearing your helmet, the chances of you, hitting something slippery or something and you fall off the bike is the same as if you're a 2-year-old on a strider and you fall off and you hit your head on the curb or the sidewalk or anything. Those helmets are huge. That's an easily preventable action to do, or that's something that you can do that can prevent that injury. It may not stop it completely, but it's something that's going to lessen those risks for later, those traumatic brain injuries, the concussions. There's various forms of concussions and how we best treat them and the long-term effects of these. So it's literally from, age 1 birth to, way beyond birth into the hundreds. We have a very great centurion population here, and they are still very active. They're still doing a lot of things where we see them come in and I'm like, I'm amazed that you still have this ability, but I don't want to take that away from you. I want them to still be able to go home, have that life that they've lived before, maybe some adjustments, but if they know what they can do and how they can do it, that's our goal, from birth to
remain independent.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
A big thing amongst Idahoans as well.
Very much so.
You think of falls a lot of times in wintertime. Slipping on ice, that seems kind of like, oh, that's when that is most common, but obviously it's year-round. What are some common falls that you see in the warmer months as we approach those warmer months?
Yeah, like I mentioned, bicycles. Hiking, everybody loves to go to Tubbs Hill, and if you trip, I know I'm not the most graceful of walkers, and so if I'm on Tubbs Hill, I'm a little bit extra cautious. So going on hikes, going for runs, walking in normal, every day, it's just those are probably the most common, is like cyclists, bicycles, falling from a height. A lot of people going to clean out their gutters. You can be mowing and slip on something. I mean, it literally could happen more than just in the wintertime. The summer months are probably going to be more of tree trimming. With our winds that we get occasionally, you're cutting down a tree to be able to clean up that yard or anything like that. And it's those little things that nobody really thinks about. It's, lights, sure, when you're putting your lights up for Christmas, that makes sense, but cleaning out your gutters, anybody cleaning out their gutters, anybody going on the hikes, Tubbs Hill, Canfield, all those great sites and everything, falling off a boat, hitting your head, it could be anywhere. There's a lot of fall risk. That's why it's the number one reason, or number one injury that we have.
Yeah, you pretty much see everything in the emergency department, and it's not like you want people to live in a bubble, but again, just be aware and make sure that some of the activities that they're doing are dangerous, and to proceed with caution and as safely as they can.
Yeah, and we do a lot of one of the programs that we have for our elderly, like our senior centers and things like that, is a program called Bingo Size, and it incorporates exercise. So that's huge for anybody with a risk for falls or has a tendency, like if they're just sedentary more often, being able to keep the muscle, and even just a little bit, sitting in your chair and taking a, walking step as you're doing something, watching TV in between commercials, and then you go out and walk on Tubbs Hill, that's giving you better than if you've just been sitting on the couch, not doing anything. It gives you that extra muscle to be able to stand up when you trip. I'm graceful, but I catch myself quite a bit when I do trip or fall or anything. I'm able to stop. So it's the programs and the things that you can do at home that when you go out, you're not going to be as at risk for it. We're working on some things with EMS to provide things at home that winter or summer, if there's a risk inside the house, well, it doesn't matter if it's summer outside or winter outside. If you trip on your rug, you could get injured that way. So we're working with EMS to try and provide some safety materials to be able to give to the parents or family members, caretakers of people who have fallen, EMS crews get called out to lift assist. And so they're like, I don't need to go into the ER, but I just can't get up. I need back in my house. I need back up in my, chair or anything like that. And so they'll come in there, EMS will check them out, say, we can take you if you have any concerns, unless it's super obvious, then they will make sure you come in. But if it's not obvious and they don't want to be checked out, what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Because every time you fall, that increases your risk to fall again. So the EMS crews have gone to people's houses multiple times in one shift, and they want to be able to help them. Like, I'm willing to come and help you, but what can I do to help you help yourself, so that you don't feel like you can't live by yourself anymore. And so that's something that we're trying to work with EMS to provide. It's a work in progress.
Third on the list is motor vehicle related crashes. And some might think motorcycles, some might just think cars, but there's also a lot of off-road vehicles. And especially where we live, there's a lot of recreating and ATVs and certain things like that. Any feedback for those people or any just additional insights that you want to share?
So my predecessor actually started a little bit of a program for ATVs, that being, kind of the thing that everybody does around here. And it's not Panhandle, but the State and Parks Recreation site has a ATV safety class that she kind of coordinated with to provide, these are what you would do. This is how you ride on an ATV safely. This is what you would wear on an ATV. We do see quite a bit of kids that are on ATVs, and they are great on a straight road, but then they take a turn, and we've had them fall on, 15-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and they're okay, but they have a traumatic injury that we now have to treat and get them back to themselves so that they can continue on with their, their childhood and everything. We have that program through the Parks and Rec, State Parks and Recs, that has been pretty handy. It's got a little module program video to watch. You get checked off. I know Farragut State Park had a course that they were providing, and so that's something to look at too, because 2022 we saw a handful of ATVs, and the next year we almost doubled it in ATV accidents that came in. And that can be anything from, I just fell off, but I don't remember what happened. So that's something that we consider traumatic brain injury because there's no recollection. Or it landed on me and now I have a broken arm or a broken leg. And some have been way worse than that, but that shows the difference between a small injury that we still consider a traumatic injury we want to prevent to something really big where maybe you're going too fast or things. But they have a great ATV program that they set up to have people practicing and driving. I mean, I'm not comfortable on an ATV. I could probably make it, but I would definitely be taking that course just to make sure that I'm not one of the people that comes in.
Absolutely, because those things can go fast. You start feeling way too confident on them, and especially kids. I mean, the last thing you want is your child to be traumatically injured and having to deal with a lifelong injury.
Correct.
We've talked a lot about the summer months coming, people being outdoors more, recreating more, so on and so forth. Speak to some of the main points that everyone knows, but they don't hurt to remind you.
Yep. So I know there's a lot of kids out on their bikes going to school. If you have a helmet, put that on there. There's some sites that the Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, has that actually will show you how to properly have a helmet and how to adjust it. We're happy at Kootenai Health to also be able to provide that. We've been given a great way to provide helmets to those who do not have a helmet at different schools, and we'll be going around actually to a couple bike rodeos at Holy Family and Hayden, and then elementary schools here in Coeur d'Alene that are putting on bike rodeo so that they can ride a bike, get a helmet if they need a new one. They're properly fitted. Coeur d'Alene Police Department is coming in and helping with that. That's a really big piece of it is like a helmet isn't going to prevent somebody from getting a concussion because it's not necessarily the impact. It's what's happening inside your head, but it's going to prevent you from getting more seriously hurt where it's there so that it protects your head so that if you do fall and you hit, you have something just a little bit extra than your skull to protect your brain. That being said, I know they're not like the cool thing to wear, but they do make some pretty sweet helmets out there. My son has one and it's a mohawk, and it's my favorite thing that he wears because it's such a cool thing to wear. But I mean, when we go on bike rides, we all wear a helmet, and now it just gives me that one extra chance that there's something that will prevent them from getting hurt should they fall, should something happen like that. Making sure.
Just to that point, I mean, one of the best things we can do as parents is lead by example.
Yeah, exactly.
And bike helmets is certainly one of those.
And that's a big thing, because I know that's like, it's the thing. It's not the cool thing to wear, but I'd rather be wearing a helmet looking like a, quote, dork than be in a hospital bed and not be able to breathe because I hit my head so hard I no longer function like I would be. And with that, there's like bike safety, and there's safe routes to take and where to ride your bike and how to ride your bike if you're going to be on the street, if you're going to be on the sidewalk. Those are big things that I'm working on promoting as well, and trying to get some programs with riding to school and where would you ride to school, what do you do when you're crossing the street, different plans set in place so that I can provide that extra education, because sometimes people, even in crosswalks, unfortunately, people are not paying attention, and kids are wearing a helmet, looking both ways, and they're still, can be in danger there. So that's something that with our bike lanes, that's huge, but could we do more? So that's something that I'm looking at as well, but we're heading in the right direction as long as, everybody does everything that they should be doing, but it's still it's always going to be a work in progress. Other things with the summer is, the falls, and if you're outside and you're playing, a lot of times people will get overheated when they're playing outside, and then they might have what they call a syncopal episode where they pass out. Well, what if they hit their head if they're outside and they're playing in the playground, or they fall off the jungle, the jungle. Do we even have jungle gyms anymore?
Yeah.
Okay. Like the swings and things like that. If that happens, those are pieces that they need to be aware of, like how best to handle it. What do I do if my kid hits their head and after, swinging on the swing set or something like that? What do I do if they can't remember where they're at? All these different pieces, that's when we will be creating and helping them. This is how you can't always prevent falling off a swing set, but these are what you can do for after the fact, and how you can prevent any further injuries, or what you can do. Because again, we don't want them to live in a bubble. I want you to be outside. North Idaho in the summertime is gorgeous and beautiful and amazing, but don't be stuck inside because you don't want to get hurt. Go outside. Be smart about what you're doing. Staying hydrated when you're outside. Heat stroke is pretty common, especially when we get in those summer months that we unexpectedly have the hot weather. It's everybody knows, don't leave your kid in the car, but really don't just leave windows down. This is like the car can increase in temperature every 30 minutes. It goes up by 15, 20 degrees. So if you're in the store, that's another issue. Well, then if you're outside playing, think about that. You're running, you're not drinking, you're doing all these things. Now you're at risk to possibly fall down and hurt yourself, either you being 5 years old or 65, 75, 45. Anybody has that risk, especially with Ironman coming up. We work at the Ironman medical tent, and we help them in the same situations because those are at risks and those are preventable as well. So we can jump ahead of it.
And then last but not least, touch on water safety. Of course, it's a big one around here.
So that's huge here too. We have life vests that we're going to be redistributed out to all of the boat marinas. That's sponsored with the U.S. Coast Guard and Kootenai Health. So we'll be putting those out here probably in the next few weeks to maybe even a month before in June. They're loaner ones. Sometimes they're well used and not around anymore, so we replenish them. If somebody notices, I think they have a number on them. If somebody notices that we don't have life jackets at a particular marina, we can call that number and we can just restock them to be able to provide that for people. I know my daughter is a very strong swimmer, but when she's on a kayak out in the middle of Coeur d'Alene Lake, she still wears a life vest. She keeps it on because you don't know. You could tip over, you could be overheated, forget to drink your water, pass out in the water. You can't really swim if you're not awake. So those are huge things as well. The other part of it is, teaching your kids young to swim. We have a program that I'll be bringing to a couple of the Head Start preschools in the next couple of weeks, actually, that's called Josh the Otter program. And that one is a really great program that educates the younger kids on how to swim. A lot of people are scared of swimming and what to do even in shallow water, things like that. So it's a good reminder to pay attention to your kids when they're in the water. Make sure that if they aren't familiar with swimming, that you're either close by or you give them boundaries and you need to stay here and only here. If you have a great swimmer, just remind them, anything can happen. Be prepared. Always tell somebody where you're going to go. That's huge. I know we have accidents that happen when they're in the water with Ironman coming up, people going to swim. There's still a lot of boating. We are popular for that. Try to be smart when you're out on the water. If you decide to have an alcoholic drink, please, by all means, make sure you have some water with you and something to, put in your tummy as well, because that's another risk, is if you, haven't been drinking water, but you've been drinking alcohol, which is, a lot of fun. It's great to be on the boat in the water in Coeur d'Alene and doing that, but I don't want anybody to be at risk to fall in the water and bonk their head or drown. That's a horrible situation to be in at all. But Josh the Otter program starts young, and so that's a huge piece that we at Kootenai Health are doing to get that promoted as well.
Well, amazing work. You're doing such great things for our community, and doing so much to make this a great place to live, a safe place to live, and a healthy place to live. So thank you so much for taking the time to educate us. And I will put more information on resources and things like that in the show notes. And of course, you can always check out the injury prevention page on kh.org.
Exactly.